Hi, I'm Andrew Green, welcome to my garden. Since we were here in this particular place, I wanted to talk first of all a little bit about chickens and what they can do. This is a pear tree. One of the pests we particularly have is something called pear midge. What pear midge does is the pear midge flies up into the blossom, lays its eggs in the blossom, they hatch out into the developing fruitlet, which then goes all black and falls off the tree. And then that's got the eggs of the pear midge in it, and then the next year they'll develop into grubs, they'll develop into the midge and fly straight back up into the tree. So basically it's a continuing problem year after year after year. What you could do is spray a neonicotinoid pesticide on it, which would go in the sap stream of the plant and kill all of that, but we don't use that. What we do use, had an idea this year, was to clear the area underneath it and put the chickens on it. And then the chickens hopefully will eat the pear midge eggs that are overwintering in the soil. We'll see, fingers crossed. Moving on, we just had chickens. The chickens are a recent thing, we've only had them since February last year. So we're not exactly experienced chicken keepers. But then this isn't about self-sufficiency, full self-sufficiency, about self-sufficiency in vegetables. The chickens provide a useful service. This is a comfrey bed. Comfrey is and it's a weed if you like, or a herb. The herb, it's called, common name is nipbone. I used it when my wife fell off a ladder onto concrete floor in our gallery. She broke a couple of ribs and was giving her comfrey tea several times a day, and that seemed to clear up the broken ribs very, very quickly. This is comfrey here, just coming through. I say it's like compost on the plant. It's very high in nitrogen, but particularly very high in potassium. So I use it a lot on tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, all those plants that need a lot of potassium for fruiting. Very useful crop, but it is a bit of a spreader, that's why we've kept it in this bed here. Now we're used to, as you can see in the garden, I normally in the winter cover all the beds I'm not using with plastic. It stops the weeds growing in the winter. It's quite a useful technique. This year, this bed I was going to cover with plastic, but we let the chickens out in the winter, and as you can see they're doing their chicken thing, which is scrabbling around, eating weed seeds, eating grubs, eating ants, basically sort of giving it a good dig over. So I think in terms of keeping weeds down, chickens are quite a good idea. We may have a few more beds that we don't cover next winter. They're fun to have around, chickens as well. I used to find chickens a bit annoying, but they're actually really nice, really sweet. But you do need to keep them off your crops. This is broad beans. I sowed them in towards the end of November. There she is eating dandelions. I sowed them towards the end of November. They came up in about a month. We're now towards the end of January, a month later. Yeah, quite little. But they overwinter quite happily. They just sit there, they carry on growing gradually, and we should be eating these in about May. You'll notice the very close spacing, as the system I use here is deep beds. It's not raised beds, deep beds. In theory you dig them once and then you never dig them again, but in fact I find the soil tends to get more and more compacted, weeds tend to grow. So I dig it every 3 years perhaps. But that means the soil is very loose, and these plant roots can go down instead of having to spread out, so you can put things much, much closer together. These are maybe 5 or 6 inches apart, but the yield is fine. That's broad beans. This is globe artichokes, which is a perennial. There's a new plant I planted last year, there's an old one there, and they come up every year. Give you artichokes, which is nice. This is rocket. Again covered purely because of the chickens. We do have a few pheasants in our garden now. Our landlord keeps pheasants, raises pheasants so people can come and shoot them. So we do get pheasants in the garden, they will tend to eat things, but this is mainly to stop the chickens. The chickens love rocket. This is rocket, which I sow in the middle of August. We eat it all winter. It's a very useful overwintering salad plant. Quite happy, certainly quite happy in Dorset where it's a fairly mild climate. It's pretty frost tolerant rocket. Let's go. Oh, just hold on a second. potatoes. I don't lift the potatoes, I just leave them in the ground. If it were a little bit of a colder area, I'd cover it with straw. The main problem here is not them freezing in the ground, but sprouting because it's too mild. There's a potato. And there's more potatoes. These ones actually aren't sprouting, which is good. No. The variety I grow is Cara. It's not a heritage variety, obviously, but it yields well whatever the weather, and that's why I grow it. Just walk around here a bit and look at a few more of the things we've got in the winter. Over here. This is parsley, sown in the summer. Again, parsley will just sit there in cold weather quite happily. You can use it all year. Parsley is a brilliant antioxidant herb. Very good for the eyes, but lutein has xanthine in, which a lot of hardly any plants have those in it. Very good for the eyes, very good for the digestion, very good for everything. Vitamin C as well. Fantastic herb. These are leeks. I do the traditional old thing of sowing them in a seed bed, then digging them up, cutting off half the roots, cutting off half the foliage, making a hole with a dimmer about that long, and then sticking the leek in and filling it with water. I don't know whether many people do this. This is a traditional method of dealing with leeks. Again, quite close together. The rows are that distance apart so I can hoe between them, which is the easiest way of keeping the weeds down really high. This was a tomato bed from last year. They're pretty much gone. I mean, there's a few tomatoes on it. I don't think we're really using them, but I haven't quite had the time to take them up yet. There were a few there. Moving around here. Spinach, this is leaf beet. Perpetual spinach it's called, or leaf beet. Part of the beetroot family. Again, a very useful winter staple. Chickens love it, hence the covering. We have swedes here. There's a swede. They weren't very good this year. Parsnips here. Parsnips started to grow. Parsnips, swedes, carrots, beetroot. What they do in their first year is they produce the bulb, and then the second year they use all the energy stored in that bulb to produce a great flower shoot. That's what biennials do. As you see, these are starting to sprout a bit, they're perfectly usable. Later on in the season they'll have that woody inner core and start to go less sweet, and that's when they become unusable. Again, fairly close spacing. I just sow these in situ. To the left there, purple sprouting broccoli, which I sow in April and we start eating it in about April. It takes a year. A really great crop for the so-called hungry gap, which is that gap between the winter vegetables finishing, parsnips starting to bolt, and the summer ones becoming available. Yeah, it's really great, really nice, really good flavour. But again, covered because of pigeons and chickens. Covered in the summer because of the cabbage white and small white butterflies and the winter moth, which would lay their eggs on them and strip them down to spines. It has to be covered. This covering material is called EnviroMesh. It's a very fine mesh nylon, and it keeps all those flies off. Just pop into the greenhouse. Got some lettuces here I sowed in September. They're bolting a bit actually, but they're still usable. These are ones I sowed a little later. I find the greenhouse very useful in the winter for lettuces, so we get lettuces all the year round. I'll talk at another point about the potting on the ceilings there. Pop down here. These are the three longest beds I have, 35 foot long, it's at about 11 metres it's not a very good rotation. I have most of our tomatoes in one, brassicas, which is the winter cabbages, Brussels sprouts and cauliflowers in the other, and sweet corn in the third, so I can only rotate between the three. But that's satisfactory enough. Okay, all the winter brassicas covered in the summer against the butterflies. As I say, they would strip them, completely ruin them. At the end here, we've got cabbages. These are red cabbages. There's some green ones. They're not particularly fantastic this year, and they look a bit crap because they've got this black leaf spot I get, but you just peel those off and you've got a perfectly fine cabbage underneath it. Same with the red ones. That beautiful red cabbage colour there. Further along here, we've got some cauliflower. I have a problem with cauliflowers. I do try to get succession of crops, but they all seem to get ready at the same time. I need to devise a method so that instead of getting 15 cauliflowers all ready at the same time, I get them successionally. Last year it was 15 enormous cauliflowers ready at the same time. This year they're smaller, and in fact, as you can see from that one, it's going to waste. It's not really usable, that one. This one might be still whitish. It's gone a bit far really, but you know, usable, that's fine. Brussels sprouts here were small this year, disappointingly small. It's difficult to summon up the enthusiasm to pick and deal with sprouts that small really. Again, I don't know why. You'll find it in every year, some things do really well, some things don't do so well. That's just how it is with gardening. And this is where the chickens live. This is where the sweet corn was. Chickens are here. I'll probably put the winter brassicas in this bed, because the chickens will have fertilised it quite nicely. And I think that'll do for today. Just a little bit of an outline on what I do here, just a few ideas perhaps. So talk later, hopefully on the day.